Welcome to Playing with Knives. We are a channel that believes that food is a love language. Today we are going to be making a roast. I've had quite a few requests on how to make a roast, and we have a cookbook which will be coming out soon about this if it's not already out. If it is, it'll be in the link below. We're going to go over basics of making a roast. This is an amazing dish because you set it up and you set it and you forget it. The key components, of course, you need to use cook it low and slow. You need to set the roast up right when you do it the first time, every subsequent time, of course. And then, so low and slow, set it up correctly. Oh, and you need to have enough water, enough moisture in the pot when you're cooking it. So we have all of the ingredients we're going to start using. I'm going to show you guys exactly how we do this. And I am excited for this recipe. This is an amazing Sunday afternoon recipe for those of you who know that Easter or Mother's Day is coming up, or any holiday for that matter, or just the weekend. This is a great way to go. Now, I use this for food prep because it provides me with food all week long. As you can see, we're creating a lot of stuff here. I'm using a lot of fresh herbs. I'm cooking with a lot of healthy food. I do that on purpose. So, first things first, what pot are you going to use? You can use a stock pot or you can use a Dutch oven. Now, there's no major difference between these two things depending on what you have at home. And so I'm going to kind of go over the differences here. The Dutch oven is going to hold heat longer, which is fine because you're cooking low and slow. With both of these, if you're going to cook them on a stovetop, which you can do perfectly fine, if you can find a little metal trivet, that's going to be an amazing thing because what it does is it creates a layer between the actual coils and your pot. There's a little gap in air, so then you have different kinds of heat and diffused heat, which helps prevent burning since it's a low and slow 3-hour cook. If you're working with a Dutch oven, you're going to know it's a Dutch oven because no part of it's going to be plastic. This black top, not actually plastic. The Dutch ovens also have these dimples, which you can see on the top of the lid. Those dimples are actually designed so that as the water is condensing on the lid, it's coming down and touching those and dropping evenly over your food. Stock pot's not designed to do that, and that's perfectly okay. Now, stock pots will have a little air hole, like a little at the top. If you're cooking on the stovetop, you have to leave your lids ajar for both of these. If you're cooking in the oven, you're perfectly fine. I do still put a tray on the lower shelf so that if something does bubble over, it catches. But that's the first trick that you want to look at. The second thing is if you are using a stock pot, if you don't have a Dutch oven, perfectly fine, then you could take some aluminum foil, make sure it's the width of this, crinkle it up rough, like you don't have to make it a tight ball, and then unwrap it. What that's going to do is when you put everything in here, you're going to put that on top, and then there's a hack that comes with that, and I'll tell you that in a second. When you put that on top, what's happening is that your the foil is catching that steam, and it's dripping down off all those dents and indentations and contours of the foil that you just created. So you're mimicking a stock pot. The biggest thing is if it goes in the oven, you want to make sure it doesn't have plastic that cannot go in the oven. A lot of pots that you get nowadays do. This is a brand called Tefal, which I purchased from Costco. I love Costco. They have a full set. With rentals, I go and get a full set of cookware and I put it in the rental. Makes sense, useful, and because I know what to look for, I always get the stuff that they're not going to burn in the oven. My favorite is All-Clad. All-Clad is actually a company that works with the US Mint to mint coins. They mint metals on a very, very high level. So the cookware that they make is phenomenal. When you look at All-Clad, go do your research. They have different grades of what they're doing. Some of them have 3 layers of metals put together, layer after layer, so that it evens the heat out. Some of them have 5. Kind of impressive. But you're going to see more with them a stock pot because they're not the company that builds the or a quart. Sorry. You're going to see more of a stock pot with them, not a Dutch oven. Le Creuset makes the glazed Dutch oven that has this wonderful finish on it. They put a lifetime warranty on it, which is an amazing thing. So if there's cracking in that glaze, you can take it back to them. Now, this one is a knockoff. Everybody goes through college, everybody starts out with zero to little money. And so this is one that I bought years ago, and it is falling apart slowly but surely. There are companies like Lodge that make them without this wonderful glaze if you want it as well. You can see the little chips on the handles and everything. But those are some brands that you can look at, some things you can look at. You can work with any pot, no matter what it is, as long as you can fit the food in there and it doesn't have the plastic bits. All right, so now that we've gone over safety issues with food and how to choose which pot you're gonna cook with, because I'm doing another dish today, I'm gonna set this guy aside and I'm gonna work off of the cast iron. When making your actual roast, you want to build a nest. And the reason you're building the nest is because you're going to cook this low and slow, but you need to pull that meat off of the bottom of the pan. When you're making the nest, we're going to do just a generic American style, which actually is kind of based on French cooking today. You can do all different flavors, and in the cookbook, it's going to have different variations you can do. You can do Spanish, Southern, Central South American. You can do Asian flavors. You can do Irish flavors. We're gonna do more of a French style today. So the first thing you do is you make a nest for the meat to go in. And what you're doing when you make the nest is you're using things that have low sugar content. So I've got my spring onions. I'm gonna use some of these for a dish later on. So I'm gonna take the green parts because I like the varying color and leave quite a bit of the white. And I'm literally gonna sprinkle those over the bottom of the pan because that creates a layer between the bottom of the pan and the roast, separating it from that direct heat. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to layer in my onions. As you can see, I have carrots and potatoes, but I don't want to put these because they're high starch, high sugar. The onions, however, are going to go in on the bottom. And these are pickled onions. I did some pickled onions a while back. I don't know if that content ever got published. Real easy recipe. You do 1 part apple cider vinegar, which has all your probiotics, in with, just go get the giant jug of distilled vinegar, do 2 parts of the distilled vinegar. I did red onions, I bought them at Costco, so I had a whole lot, I had to start processing them. I'm putting those in because they're not the heavy starch vegetables. And then celery. So traditional French cooking uses onions, celery, and carrots as its base. They also use a mother sauce called a roux, but we're not doing that today because this is a different dish. What I've done is I've put everything in my Ninja blender. This is a whole stalk of celery, and this thing's gonna cook down, and it's gonna provide a bunch of moisture, and it's gonna help the dish from getting dry. And it is everything. And I rinsed everything really well, and then all those greens in the middle, I put those in. Those wonderful leafy bits, those are gonna give a lot of flavor. If you're making a salad to go with this, take those leafy bits, separate them out, chop them up, and throw them in your lettuce, and it's going to give it a really bright flavor to your salad. Okay, so now we've got our nest. I'm going to pull some to the side because I'm going to set the meat in here. So here's our nest, and you can see it takes up quite a bit. This is actually going to cook down. So what's going to be very full when you start is going to cook down and not be as full later on. So it looks like I'm a glutton. It looks like I did a lot that I eat. Because I cut these celery with the blade of a Ninja blender, just basically thin slicing it, this is gonna start disintegrating into the food. You're still gonna have all that flavor, you're still gonna have the fiber, and what little nutrients celery has. People say it has none, but let's face it, it's a living organism, it's green, it's made of proteins, there's nutrients in it. So that's gonna cook down. Now I've got parsley, and the parsley is the garnish, but the bottom half of the parsley was all stems. And so I cut up the stems, and I'm gonna put the stems in here because they're gonna cook in and be flavor. I cut them very small so that they would just be like a nice little dice. And that leaves behind all the green tops for garnish later. But it gives me all that flavor from that parsley. And parsley has a slightly bitter note, which goes very well with beef. Okay, so we've made our nest. I have one more ingredient I'm gonna throw in, and these are mushrooms. And I'm gonna show you how I do mushrooms. You can slice them thin, perfectly fine. But when you're just doing like a rustic cook like this, you can break them in half. And I use portobellos just because I prefer them over button. You can break the tops into quarters, pull the stem off, and then it's ready to go. So these guys are going in, mix them around, mostly because, again, I need to put the meat in the middle. So that's all done. We're gonna leave our starchy vegetables to last. What I need to do next is I need to prepare the roast itself. What you do with the beef is very, very important, and how you find beef is very, very important. So when you're purchasing, you wanna get a nice roast that has marbled fat throughout. The fat is going to help keep it moist while it's cooking. It's also gonna produce a lot of flavor. Because it's cooking low and slow, the fat's gonna break down. It's gonna render down, add flavor. It's gonna even out throughout the dish, so you don't have to worry too much about it. But if you have these giant chunks of fat on the end, it's not gonna do what you want. You shouldn't have to trim a lot of fat off the edge of the piece you have. You're paying for that extra fat. You want it to be marbled throughout. And if you don't know how to do this, here's a hack. Go to the same grocery store week after week, pick a day you do your grocery shopping, and talk to the butcher. Get to know the butcher, learn the butcher's name, ask the butcher about himself, one question a week. You're gonna get to know the butcher, and then the butcher's gonna know what it is you're looking for, and they're gonna be able to advise you on the best cuts of meat for the exact same price. Take advantage of the fact that they are the expert in the industry. Make a friend out of it, right? Okay, so with this, first thing I did was I pulled it out of the package and I dried it off. Dried meat, you literally just take it and tamp it, right? Not a whole lot. Flip it over, tamp it on the other side. Doesn't pull a lot of moisture off, but it does. Give you a dry surface so that when you're putting your herbs in there, they're gonna stick better. Okay, so the next thing you need to choose is your herbs and spices. For this, what we're gonna do is just real basic. We're gonna do black pepper. I'm gonna do a little bit of, I just happen to have smoked garlic, powdered garlic up there, and then I'm gonna use some of my herbs and mix that in there. Now, I don't salt this because I'm on a low sodium diet, which is perfectly fine. You can if you want. It's just not something I do. What we're doing when we're mixing these together is we're creating what's called a dry rub. I'm probably gonna throw a little bit of paprika in there. If you like spice, you can add some red pepper flakes. I don't eat a lot of spice, so I'm gonna go minimal on them. If you read that cookbook, you're gonna see there's different flavor profiles. That's when you're starting to get into different spices for different regions. Morocco, Spain, Thailand. The world is varied, and there's so much you can do with just a simple roast. Right back with spices. Okay, spices. Of course, I opened the cupboard and started grabbing more. So, what I grabbed, I'm sticking with traditional American flavors. So I've got some basic steak flavoring, and then I grabbed some, here's the smoked garlic. You can use garlic, salt, all that, whatever. I did this smoked garlic. I purchased the smoked garlic because it was lower in sodium than garlic salt, and I'm trying to reduce salt in the diet. I've got just basic paprika. You can leave this out if you want. I did grab the crushed red peppers because we did talk about it. Black pepper. And then of course, we will use a little bit of vinegar later. As you know from cooking, fat and acid together bring out natural flavors. Additionally, when this is cooking, you want to make things a little bit more acidic. It'll help tenderize the meat while it's cooking for that 3-hour period. Now that we have this together, we need to mix it up so we have a nice even rub. You can use a mortar and pestle. You don't have to. I can link one below. Or you can just use a little ramekin. I can link those below as well. Mortar and pestle is for when you want to crush up your ingredients, but I'm just going to use a little bowl. So I go heavy on the black pepper. It's only the only heat that I'm going to throw into the dish. And throw a little bit of red pepper in there, just because we talked about it. Nothing that I'm actually going to taste. Paprika, and you can sub out all kinds of pepper for this.